Hi, I'm Rakesh. I'm a permaculture teacher and designer. Done a lot of work in transition towns and was an activist before then. So I've done many projects and seen many projects work, and many projects fail to basically last the distance, mainly because of social cohesion, so social issues. So I was really fascinated to see how it is we could really make social projects work. So from that perspective, I got really fascinated by Sociocracy and started implementing it in my projects and in my courses, to the point where now more or less all of my permaculture courses are run and the whole social cohesion is done using Sociocracy. So people use it every day. I've also set up various projects: the whole Children in Permaculture, Youth in Permaculture, the Roots in Permaculture Learning Community, Roots in Permaculture, Teachers Network, etc. They're all run using Sociocracy, and yeah, it's been really great learning, a really great opportunity to put Sociocracy into action and really see people come together around this. So my talk today is about the role of Sociocracy for grassroots and informal groups. And as a permie, obviously the first place I'm always going to start is by, we need to recognise that for every solution, it's a solution to a problem. So until we understand what the problem is, there's no real point looking at a solution, otherwise it's meaningless. So first I'd like to look at some of the challenges and some of the benefits of these groups and why we need to support them, and then we'll start looking at some solutions. So first of all, most grassroots and informal organisations play a really invaluable role in our societies. They're often doing things that that really need to be done for social good. The way I think of it actually is, the day that we handed over control of things that really society, community should be doing, over to governments and local councils and things, is, that was a major cop-out. Basically, losing control, losing power of the things that really need to be done to really bring about social cohesion and social good over to another organisation who is only theoretically accountable, but realistically not really accountable, for me is a real big cop-out. This should be something that all of us are doing as a community, as a society, rather than relying on someone else to do it for us. So many of these groups, these social organisations and informal groups, whether it's transition towns, whether it's eco-communities or whatever, or whether it's different charities, etc., they're doing a really valuable service, and very often they're unpaid, they're voluntary, and so this brings about different challenges than, for example, if we were in a corporation, a company. And so for me, Sociocracy needs to be adapted to this kind of environment. So if we look, what causes a lot of the problems within these groups is because it's an informal group. There's no real. So, for example, in a company, quite often, because you're being paid to be there, there's some kind of expectation that you just do and you fit in with the rules. And so if your boss says go to this meeting, you go to that meeting, whether you like it or not, which in itself, means that quite often maybe you're at a meeting which you really don't care about, and you're not really enthusiastic about, but you're kind of forced to do it, and therefore the numbers turn up. You can't really do that in an informal group. You can't really do that in a voluntary group, because if you're not passionate about it, you're not likely to turn up on your free time. If we also look at some of the mindset of many groups and many organisations, we see that while there's often some leaders in there, quite a lot of people are actually there's very few opportunities actually for many of us to actually take leadership roles. So quite a lot of people are very they just don't have the skills. They maybe many of them don't even want, because they see some of the pitfalls in leadership, the harder they come, harder they fall and all that. Quite often people don't want to take that responsibility. Whereas others kind of, to counterbalance that, they kind of take these leadership roles, and quite often are quite dominant and quite, they want to basically get their own way and to impose their views and their ways. So these are things that, people are used to seeing in society, used to seeing in projects and what have you. So these are some of the challenges that we're going to face. The other major issue that I see is how many people don't want to be at meetings. Quite often meetings are boring. Very often, especially when you're really busy, and why on earth would I want to go to that meeting? So quite often people just are not interested in going, or they'll make excuses as to why not to go. Especially when big parts of the meeting are things that they're just not passionate about. So and we see the typical patterns in many meetings where things run over time, voices are not being heard, and all the classic things that most of us who are into sociocracy know and recognise. So because of some of these issues, the way that I started looking at it is first of all, ultimately sociocracy is all about making decisions. It's about bringing a group together in real clear harmony, really enjoying themselves, but making things happen, according to your vision and mission, but really working together, and ultimately good, clear decisions need to be made in order for this project to really fulfill itself. So how to make those decisions? We all know the sociocratic practices, but actually, getting people to those meetings is actually the difficult part, especially in these kinds of groups that we're discussing here. So what I do is that my solution to that is really to ensure that everyone understands the culture of how we can make good decisions with the people whoever are available, the people who are passionate about something, or the people who have the time to understand something and therefore make a decision about it. So in other words, our policy meetings are only about making policy decisions, i.e. testing for consent. Now, in order to test for consent, obviously we need to make sure that everyone understands it and that everyone has had an opportunity to look at the policy to make sure that there's no reason as to why that policy would interfere with their ability to meet their vision, mission and aim. So something needs to happen before the meeting. If we don't have time in meetings for clarifications, for discussions about certain issues, which could then change proposals, etc., etc. The more you can do that in advance, the more people can really truly understand your proposal, the easier it will be to test for consent. So the way that I do it is I effectively have different types of meetings. So for example, a particular workflow could be that we have regular status meetings. Some people may call them stand-up meetings, whatever. So in a status meeting, this is where the group comes together at least, periodically. Could be once a month, could be twice a month, could be once a week, depending on your group, even every day, depending on your circumstances. And in it should be really short, sharp, quick, where everyone has an opportunity to express themselves from an individual perspective of what's working for them, what's serving them, what's going well for them, as well as what's happening in their group. Now, this is an opportunity where issues can start to be raised. So at this point we're not looking to solve any of these problems. We're not looking to have a discussion or a debate, but we've identified something, and then we make the only decision we make is how we try to address it. So what could come from this is we could set up a little working group to have a little discussion about it. Not in this meeting, separate time. Whoever is passionate, whoever wants to be there, can be there. So you give everyone else who's not in that status meeting, as well as people in the status meeting, an opportunity to come and attend that little work, be part of that working group and start looking at it. That working group could turn into a proposal forming group. So again, we could have a proposal forming exercise, which quite often the way that I do it is I do it over a month, where everything is online. So you have a week to start asking the questions, you have a week to synthesize the questions, you have a week to, and then test for consent that you're ready. Then we have a week to actually start to answer the questions and formulate a proposal, and then another week for people just to look it over, double check the answers, and then basically test for consent. So obviously, as part of that, once you've made a proposal, you then need a time where everyone has an opportunity who wasn't there at any of those meetings to have clarifications. So again, it takes time, but it should be open to everybody. Whether you have time for the full process, or if you only have time just to quickly check over the proposal. But everyone should have an opportunity to engage in it in whichever way they can. So sometimes it's even just one person who does a majority of it, but other people just keep checking and say, yeah, fine, I'm okay with that, carry on. And that's equally fine. It's getting done, people are checking, people are being invited to check, and that's the key part to this. So eventually you then make a policy, which then gets sent, which then goes to the policy meeting. So the other key things is to separate other meetings out, and so as we all know, operational meetings should not ever merge with policy meetings, but there's no reason as to why they can't be back to back. But it should be really clear, this is an operational meeting, we're talking about who's going to dig up the carrots today. That's what it's operational. We're not talking about, do we start to grow non-organic? Can we grow hybrid carrots, or do they have to be, organic heirloom varieties, whatever? So, operational meetings should be completely separate. So those who want to go to the operations, go to the operations meeting. Those who want to come to the policy meeting, come to the policy meeting. And even within the policy meeting, it should be clearly defined so that you know exactly what time each section starts. So if someone is only interested in engaging in one particular subject or one or two subjects, they know they can come to the meeting at that time, address that, walk away, knowing that everything's on time. So this is all about being efficient. So because the policy meeting is the one opportunity where everyone should be together, and as many people as possible. So if that's long, drawn out and boring, you're going to struggle to really keep people coming back. Whereas if that's nice, short, sharp, efficient, things get done, people feel like things are moving on, there's more of a chance that the project gets its momentum and keeps going. So other meetings that I have as well are like social meetings. So this is just an opportunity, especially for virtual groups which are working across the globe, to kind of get to know each other. This is kind of the community glue. This is where you just have some fun, get to know about each other, tell each other stories about your past, your history, or about things that you've been up to, things that you're doing. It's just a social occasion. Other meetings, that I keep separate are things like performance reviews and role elections and things like that, simply because they can be quite time-consuming. And so to bring them into a policy meeting or any of the other meetings, again, many people might not be interested in being at that meeting, whereas if they have to be at a long meeting, they kind of feel obliged as if they have to stay, and again, it creates the wrong kind of atmosphere. So in other words, what I've done is I've tried to adjust the sociocratic practices and the sociocratic processes to really fit and meet some of the needs of a grassroots organisation. And largely it works. There are obviously always going to be some teething troubles, and there's always going to be characters that kind of try to impose their way, and you need very careful processes in place, such as making sure that everyone agrees to artfully participate in order to kind of keep keep everything going. But largely, yeah, it's been really good fun, and yeah, well, all I can say is I'm really enjoying it. So I look forward to hearing from you to see what you think and to carry on this discussion. Ciao, ciao.